Hi, Tribe Builders. This is Tanya Rooney, and I'm super excited to introduce you to today's guest. I met him through another gal that's in my book community and hospitable host. Her name is Rose. She is a person. It's so interesting because I swear I have like 5 people or groups in my life that introduce me to all of these people, and it's really, really fun. And Rose is totally one of them people. I hopped on a call with this guy a few months ago and started talking about things in his podcast world and got to know him a little bit. And I'm super excited to chat with him about his community today. So, hi, without further ado, Gil, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a good start of the year.
Awesome. Okay, so can you tell my people about your company that you're building right now?
Yeah. So kind of before that, I'm a host myself, short-term rental host, and we've been investing in hosting for the last few years, and we wanted to get into direct bookings, and it was really hard for us to be able to build our website out of our own. And I ended up building it off of WordPress because all the other agencies were building it off of WordPress. And eventually I started to share it with my mastermind peers, like, that's really nice. Like, that's actually a really nice site. And they asked me to build theirs. And I was like, no way in hell am I ever doing that again. That took way too long. It took me
WordPress.
4 weeks to build a WordPress site. And I'm in tech, and it should have taken me that long. And at the same time, my day job was in e-commerce. My biggest partner was Shopify. And I see what they were doing for the e-commerce industry and being able to help folks that wanted to start their own e-commerce store to be able to do so in the morning and actually launch their site by the end of the day. And I was thinking back, I was like, in our industry, there's nothing like that. If you wanted a direct booking site, you either had to take what the PMS offered, or you had to hire an agency for thousands and thousands of dollars. And there wasn't anything that was really approachable by many. And I basically coded the first version of this concept and shared it, and folks loved it. And I was like, okay, I'm going all in. I left my W-2 job, and basically we now support hundreds of folks in direct bookings now. It's been a real fun ride. The company called CraftedStays.
CraftedStays. Okay, and how long, like when did you leave your W-2 job?
It was 2 weeks before Thanksgiving in 2023. So it's not that long.
Okay.
It's been like
Yeah,
14,
no,
15
it's been
months.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm guessing it's been a pretty wild ride.
It's been a wild ride. I think like if anyone's going through like self-discovery and like really that has like that growth mentality, I've grown more in the last 12 months than I did in the combined 5 years prior. It's just the things that you learn, the situations that you put yourself into, the skill sets, you just have to learn it all. And the first time you do it, it's hard. It's really, really hard. But then you get better and better and you learn new skills, and just you become a much stronger, more capable person. Like, I never thought prior to starting the company that I would ever have a podcast. That was a big fear of mine, but I was like, okay, I'm helping a lot of hosts get into direct bookings, and a lot of folks need help on marketing. So I was like, how do I help educate my customers on how to market their short-term rentals, how to market their websites? And I was like, what better way is than to bring in the best folks? And so basically I started the podcast by bringing folks that do really well in direct bookings and just have them share. And that's been an amazing ride. I met some amazing people through that, but like, I never thought that I would start that podcast.
I think
Yeah.
that's really awesome. And I agree with the you really drink from a fire hose when you start a business because you don't even I don't know. I remember when I started mine, I was just kind of like, "Oh yeah, I could do that." And I still can. I still believe that, by the way.
Yeah.
I have at this point, but you don't even know the stuff you don't know yet. You don't know about like LLC structure, you don't know about getting banking, you don't really know about like QuickBooks and trying to figure out all your books and your taxes. And that's just one chunk of a
Yep.
business because then you're also hiring and you have a different version because you're in the service industry of this. I mean, you're still like in short-term rentals, but there's a lot of facets that you don't know about until you jump in.
Absolutely. And I think that really applies to like a lot of folks on the short-term rental side. When like we get into our first short-term rental, we think it's an investment. We think we're buying an asset, put it in service, and we can get a cash flow.
Yeah, it's
We
not.
don't realize that we signed up for a business. We didn't realize that we now need to do bookkeeping. Now we have to report taxes. Now we have to operationalize all our guest messaging. There's like a lot of parts to really running a good short-term rental. especially
Yeah,
if you want to
hospitality
scale.
is huge.
It's huge. We don't sign up for that stuff. But luckily, and
No, people just think I have a house. Oh, I just have a house. I just have an Airbnb. It's like, no, 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 no. You actually should start treating it like a business.
yeah, and I find that like there's many ways of approaching it, and I think that the folks that now we're like, we saw this big wave in like 2022, 2023. Actually, 21, 22 is when the big wave came where a lot of folks got into it. And I think the folks that are still in it and still loving it are the folks that really thrive in that business mindset. And they want to build something own. They want to have control. But there are a lot of folks that are like, oh my God, this is way more than I expected. And they're now in the point where like, okay, mate, do I sell this asset and get a long-term rental or put my funds somewhere else? So we're seeing the split of how folks are dealing with it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the saturation of 2020, mostly 2021 and 2022, there was just so much saturation. Everybody wanted to be a host because it was so easy. You could just slap a house up there, throw some Walmart furniture, Facebook Marketplace furniture in, and just you could slay. Like people made a lot of money. And now the ones that are left or the ones that are still hanging on, it's like you actually have to put a little bit of effort into this. You have to be a decent host. You have to get good reviews, and you should probably care about the business. If you don't, then this isn't, I don't know, this isn't just like some random thing. It's a very active, like I find short-term rentals to be a very active business. It's
Yeah.
not a set it and forget it in any way.
No, and I think like some people actually enjoy that. Like it's not just
Yeah.
like it's not just like I'm doing a whole bunch of work and now my plate's more full. But like for me, I actually enjoy being a host. I enjoy serving folks and them leaving a great review saying that they had an amazing time and they love how we furnish the place and like and if we mess up, like how do we actually remedy those things? Like those are actually things that make me happy. And like I'm also a long-term rental investor as well too. And I stopped doing that because, quite honestly, it bored me quite a bit. Like, I didn't feel excited about doing it. And when I got into short-term rentals, we started to scale because, like, we wanted more of it. Like, yes, it provided more cash flow, but, like, we enjoyed hosting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that I completely agree. I've told people a lot that, I used to flip houses and was doing some of that stuff. And I got into short-term rentals and just realized this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, I enjoy it. This portion of the business, like, lends well to my personality. I love communications. I love hospitality. Like, this is great. I'm really happy to hear that it's the same for you because this has been the fun stuff for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, okay. Can you tell me a little bit more about CraftedStays? Like, why did you start that company?
Yeah, I felt like the barrier was just so high. It didn't make sense to me, and it maybe it's because of my background in e-commerce that like it didn't make sense to me that you would have to hire thousands and thousands of dollars, like an agency for thousands of dollars to build your website. And not all they're doing, but a lot of times they're using the same templates over and over again. It looks very similar. They're styling it differently. They're using different fonts, different colors. But underlying all that stuff, it's the same thing over and over again. And I was like, wait a minute, like there has to be a more effective way. And for me, I wanted to get into direct bookings because there was this big fear of just being too reliant on the OTAs, like having all your eggs in one basket. And we've all heard horror stories of a guest saying something that might not be true and Airbnb siding with the guest and probably like suspending your listing. And that fear is very real for a lot of folks. And hopefully we don't come across it. But for me, now that we've built the business, like I want to be in control of our own business. So I really wanted to, one, make myself more successful in direct bookings, but two, make it much more approachable for others. And that's why we ended up starting the company. So like we don't charge heavy onboarding fees. It's very affordable. Right now we have a promotion where it's $59 a month for you to start your own direct booking site. And it's very, very well optimized. It's very well performing, better in some cases than some of the agencies that build too. And I just think that it's a much better model to serve the industry.
So, do people use your website and build their own website like through yours, or is it like a done for you service?
No. So basically what we do is we connect into all the major PMSs. So OwnerRez, Hospitable, HostAway, Guesty Propose, Hostfully. If you have any of those PMSs, you just connect your account. We'll pull in all the property information, all the amenities, all the pictures, descriptions, all that stuff. and you get to pick from a series of different templates, and we'll populate the templates with best practices and copy there. And you go in there and you choose the different templates, you brand it to your branding, and you customize it. You change the hero images, you get to add new pages if you wanted to, and you basically customize it. And you can get a site set up in 30 minutes. I can do a quick demo in like 15 minutes. Like it's amazing how quickly you can build a really efficient site. And the neat thing is that like we get to tweak it. So like we have actually hundreds of people using the same template. So what that allows us to do is we end up doing a lot of testing on these sites. And we'll find out like, okay, if we move the button this way, or if we change the mobile layout this way, how does it impact conversion? And we'll do this with some of our larger hosts that have dozens and dozens of properties where they're having consistent bookings, they're having consistent volume of guests coming through. And if we find that that test actually lifted performance quite a bit, we'll actually make that sweeping change to anyone that's using that template. Or we'll maybe even go across and make that change. And so that model for me works a lot better, because if you were to hire an agency, usually what they do is they'll build you your site and they'll give it to you. And that's pretty much it. Like they're not going to go back in there. Yeah. They already got your revenues. But for us, like we want to keep our hosts on our platform. We want to have them continue to get value from us. So we're encouraged to make sure that the platform matures over time.
It's awesome. What are they built on? Like, is it built on Wix or WordPress, or what do you guys build all of this stuff on?
It's all homegrown.
Really? So this is like, I mean, it's like a brand new thing. Like I'm still trying to wrap my head around something like that, because I know that these things exist. So you built something that didn't exist at all.
Yeah. So every single component, and it evolved quite a bit over time. It didn't start off like this, but it's not built off any white label platform. We built the dashboards, all the templates, all the interactions, all piece by piece. And it happened over the series of the last 15, 16 months there. Our template editor has gone through now 3 revisions.
Cool.
And the thing is that I still do a lot of the customer onboarding. We have a team and we have my team supporting, but I still love to talk to every single one of our customers that come through the door. I want to know what they've used, what they've tried, what challenge they have as they're walking through the UI to onboard. What are they stumbling over? And that helps me improve the product. So every week I have dozens of people that I get to onboard, and every interaction is improving our product. So it's been amazing, and I'm going to try to keep on doing these onboards myself for as long as possible, and hopefully I can continue doing for a long while, but it's just the biggest gift that my customers give me.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, well, direct feedback is always helpful. Can you tell me, like, I'm thinking, I've got my short-term rental cap on, and I'm thinking about, okay, you do a lot of direct bookings. Like, what percentage of direct bookings did you start out with when you built your site, and what are you at now? And what is that? Is it website SEO and then the marketing that you do outside that brings people in, or how are people finding you?
Yeah,
that was a lot of questions, sir.
Yeah. It's different for a lot of hosts, and I'll kind of give you like the spread of like both my experience and also some of my customers as well too. For me, most of my properties actually all of my properties are in vacation rental markets. We're in Gatlinburg and in Branson. And so we have a lot of annual visitors. So what we spend most, and we don't have unique builds. Like they're not like tree houses, nothing super fancy. Like they're nice houses, and they have unique amenities. Like we have a mini putt-putt in one of them. We have an indoor pool. We have a bunk bed that has a slide in them. Like we have unique amenities.
Nice amenities, yes, but not a unique build.
Yeah,
not on the side of a cliff, and not a hobbit house.
Yeah. So like they're not like super like shareable. But we do have people that share, but a lot of it comes from just word of mouth and people coming back to us. So we really leverage our emails. And that's where we get a lot of repeat guests that comes back to us. When we first started off, it was like single digits. It took us a long while to gain some tractions. And now we're anywhere from 15 to 25%, depending on the season there, on direct. And I'm pretty happy with that. It hasn't been that long. And the goal that I see a lot of folks that get into this is over the span of 3 years, you want to get to that 30 to 60, 70% direct booking rate. It does take some time for you to build that engine there. And I've seen some folks that have, like, they have a lot more energy. Like me running this business plus short-term rentals, I'm being pulled in two different directions. So I would love to be able to spend more time on marketing, but I'm in limited capacity there. So really
Yeah.
like the lowest hanging fruit there is really to collect emails from past guests or guests that stay with us and
Yep.
continue to nurture them. And so a lot of our direct bookings are from repeat guests. But I have
Yeah.
a lot of folks that use our platform that really they get a lot of traffic from social media, they get traffic from SEO, but everybody's mix is very different. Like there's many ways to really gain traffic there. I know some fantastic folks that drive a ton of traffic just by being in very niche Facebook groups. Like they're in
Cool.
like anglers and like they're all about like a specific lake that talks about fishing. And it's very,
Oh,
very specific. And if anyone's looking for a place to stay, they always drop a note onto the Facebook group. And they get, I think, like 50% direct bookings just from that tactic. They're not spending a
it's
whole lot.
amazing. No,
So,
that's amazing. Like they're not even spending money on marketing at that point. They're literally just, that could take 10 minutes a day is just checking into 10 Facebook groups.
yeah, and it's really like just knowing like where you are, what can you really gain leverage on, because everybody's skill set is different, everybody's portfolio is different. You can have the same property in the same market and really be able to like attack it very differently. I know folks that like are very local to their markets and you do phenomenally well. Like Rose, for instance, like that introduced us. She does really well in direct bookings, and she puts a lot of care into her properties. She takes a lot of care into the guest experience, and guests really appreciate that. When they leave, they know
They talk
Rose.
about it. They talk about it too. Like she literally, guys, anybody that's listening, and if you don't know who Rose Tipka is, she literally she bakes fresh
Yeah.
cookies, truly for every single guest. And yes, she does them in bulk at this point. But she leaves fresh cookies. Like I mean, that's like hospitality to an nth degree, and then people want to come back year after year after year after year because
Yeah.
of her.
Yeah. I mean, that's her competitive advantage. And I think everybody has a different competitive advantage.
Yeah, that's I think that's awesome. I'm guessing you get to see lots of them because you talk to so many hosts. If you're talking to 10 hosts a week or even 5 hosts a week, you're learning about their business to figure out like what's special about the stay that you provide. You get to hear all kinds of tips. Oh my gosh, you should be putting out top 10 lists all the time, Gil.
Yeah, I mean that's why we had the podcast, is really like to bring in some of like our customers that have done really well. Like I have folks that have Instagram accounts with 50,000, 60,000 followers. I was like, how do you do this? Can you share with our audience on like how you're able to grow your following and how to drive that towards direct bookings? It's just amazing. Like everybody attacks it very differently, and there's no like real right way to do it. There's not like you do these 5 things and you'll kill it. Like it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually work in every market. Like every market's not the same. Like Rose kills it in her market because the big, huge families that want to come stay at her places and they're like regional to her. I'm a city stay. Like mine is in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul, or where my houses are. And then me versus my friend Wendy in Arizona. Arizona, like Scottsdale, like she's bachelorette stays. Like they're so different how you market to them, what they're expecting, what kinds of
Yep.
questions you get. Like, early check-ins versus late checkouts, like all that stuff. It seems like we're all very different, even though we're in the same industry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like there's there's very different ways of attacking it, but I think the one thing that always holds true, like every one of my guests I bring on my show, they have this strong sense of hospitality in them.
They enjoy
they
it.
they enjoy it, and they're not like just striving for that 5-star review. Yes, they want to have that 5-star review, but they're actually striving for a much higher bar. They want people to talk about their stays. They want really the folks that stay in their property to have a really good experience. They're not just trying to figure out like, how do I use the system to make sure I get more 5-star reviews? It's really thinking about the guests first. I think like if you have that mentality and you put in the right systems, you'll do well in direct bookings.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love everything about that, and it feels so true because I've just seen it happen. So it's fun to think about. Okay, can you tell me about like the reason I had you on is like, at least the communities aspect is kind of talking about like you're starting a business in the short-term rental world. You have to have community of some kind to A, get your business out there and B, just to know what the heck people even want. Can you kind of talk about, the community around you, let's start out with the short-term rental community around you.
Yeah, I think that that's probably like the bigger community that like I've like really found that to be really helpful. So prior to getting into short-term rentals, I was just doing long terms, and I wanted to get into short-term rentals, but I didn't know how. I had not known this, but two of my closest friends actually had cabins in Tennessee. Little did I know that it was in the Smoky Mountains, and it's the most like not sat. I wouldn't say saturated, but it's definitely one of the biggest volume of short-term rental homes out there. And they helped me along the way. They were there to help me underwrite. They were there to help me really figure things out. And I had read all the books. I read Avery Carl's book. Was listening to all the podcasts. At that time, I was watching Rob Built on YouTube, and like I was consuming a lot of information. But there's something different about really being able to rely on folks, and you don't really need a big community. I like right now, I find more value out of the group that we've kind of grown, and now we have like a Slack channel, and there's like about 100 of us in that Slack channel. We're very, very cautious about who we bring into this community because we rely on each other quite a bit. We're vulnerable with each other. But that community helped me and helped all of the members in that community really grow and have the confidence to really step into it. And we're all going to make mistakes. And the nice thing is like, kind of back to it, like you can be vulnerable about things. You can say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to register for the city tax. And like someone will give you an answer. And yeah. I love the Facebook groups that we have, but sometimes I feel like you can't be vulnerable when there's 30,000 members in there.
They throw shade. They throw shade hard and fast when you're in a free Facebook group.
Yeah. They're like, look at the search.
But how did this group, okay, I remember it as soon as you started talking about this, I'm like, oh, this was something I got excited about the first time that me and you talked. You told me about this group.
Yeah.
You don't have to say like, who started the group or anything, but like, is it a friend who started the group? Did you and a couple of people start a group? What did that look like? And because now it's 100 people and it's been 100 people for a while, you've told me that. And I know you guys are choosy, but how did that look and how long has it been, percolating, I guess?
I think when I joined in 21, it was 40 people. And then we started to add more members in there. And every member that we added on had a personal connection. So no one added in the group was like just someone that we just willy-nilly added in there. Is usually someone that if, for instance, my friend wanted to get into short-term rentals and they were looking for resources, I would try to help them as much as possible. But if I'm part of this Slack group, then I would invite them so that they can not just only tap into me, but they get to tap into the larger community there. And that it grew organically through that process there. Now it's about 100 people there. And I think it's kind of stagnant. Like we haven't added a lot of new people. The conversations aren't as lively as they were in 22, 23, but like we're still pretty active on it. There's different Slack channels. So if anyone's ever used Slack, it's not just like one long group, but you get to have different rooms that talks about different things. We call them channels. And we have one about the Smoky Mountains. We have one about the different tools, how to use Price Labs, how to use OwnerRez, how to use Guesty. And so the different people that use these different tools will go into those rooms and they'll get to ask this community of 100 something people there. It's really awesome because like, again, like you don't have to worry about saying the wrong things or feeling stupid about things.
Feeling stupid. That's a big one is a lot of people feel stupid about asking questions. It's like, you don't have to in some circumstances.
Yeah. So like, it's just been an awesome community. And like, we've met up a few times since. Like, we don't like have like big meetups specifically, but like whenever there's a short-term rental conference, we try to meet up. If there's any other like real estate conferences, we'll try to meet up as well too. And there's some of these folks are also in like long-term rental or commercial real estate as well too. So there's a lot of opportunities to just get to know people. But I've met a lot of those folks in person now. It's
So,
been
and
amazing.
that was a person, it was a personal invite. Somebody was like, "Hey, Gil, join this." And you were
Yep.
like, "Yep, I'm in." It's free. You don't have to do anything. And then is there like one person that kind of like has to be the admin of it, or it's
I mean,
literally you guys self-police and you're good to go?
it's self-release. There's no, I don't even know who the admin is at this point, to be to be honest.
Yeah.
But like, I think culturally, like we just built a community of people that had similar goals, that had similar values there, and we uphold those values.
Yeah.
So there's really no policing that we need to do there. As long as we continue to bring in the right folks, and it's not that much different than like if you're a manager at a company, you're trying to hire the right people and you're trying to find the right values in there. You hire the right folks with those values in there and the skill set. They'll start to bring in other folks that are very similar to that. And you build a culture towards that, and that's kind of what we did here. Is we try to build a culture that we get to rely on each other. And we're
Awesome.
we're competitive in a lot of sense where like a lot of us are in the same markets, but we're sharing our availability, we're sharing our price lab settings, we're sharing like where we're booked and what we're not and what we're having struggles with, and we don't think about it as like, oh, I'm gonna hold this to my chest because I don't want this group to be able to like see what I'm doing or I'm having successes. It's really open ended, and where like people just feel comfortable just sharing and really trying to lift each other up.
Yeah, I love stuff like that so much. And this is the experience that I have with a lot of groups, not in free Facebook groups, typically in somewhere I've paid, somewhere over here I've paid for something. And then I've created a subgroup out of that so that we can share, so you can feel vulnerable, like all of those things. Because sometimes you don't want to share that, hey, I lost $3,000 last month. I don't know what the F to do. Like you don't share just, you don't just put that as your Facebook status typically. You would want somebody to help you out with that. Like, how do I dig out of this? What does it look like? Doom and gloom or something. But when you share with people that understand, yeah, it's cool.
And I think it's like super important in like anyone that's embarking down like an entrepreneurial path. When you're starting something new that is not very linear, there's no like clear cut way of doing things. I think like this tribe is super important. It's probably less important if you're just going through your W-2 job and you're doing everything within the norm of society. But when you're starting to break out of things and you're trying to do things on your own, it's really, really important to have that support system there.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me, have you been able to find that? Because now you are a startup. Like I have a business for sure, but I have a business similar to your short-term rental business, but I do not have a startup in the same sense as what you talk about. Like you are literally creating something brand new. Tell me what that looks like, and if it's been awesome or if you struggled or what is that?
Yeah. I mean, definitely a startup is probably like the entrepreneurial path to probably the more extreme end of it, where you're having a lot of challenges, and startups are really risky. Like I don't know, like the percentage rate of failure is like 90 something percent. You're having to put a lot of your own assets into it, and we're bootstrapped. Like we spend a lot of my own savings into building out this company. I intentionally, at least for now, did not take funding. I'm not taking VC funding because I want the customers to dictate where we take the product and where we take the company. So I wanted to really maintain that control over that and not have investors, at least not right now, on so. And that creates a lot of stress. And in the very beginning, I end up joining different startup groups. One was, I think, like startups.com, which is really around like helping people really get started in their startups and like where they might having faults. But the challenge I found with that one is that like everybody in that was doing something very different. It was a lot of it was VC funded or people trying to get VC funding, and it wasn't always in tech. Like you had people doing consumer goods or creating physical products. So I had a hard time really like getting like the coaching that I needed and really being able to lean on the right folks there. And then I eventually found, I don't know if you heard Dan Martell.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a big SaaS guy and he has the SaaS Academy. And I ended up joining the SaaS Academy. And that was actually a whole lot more effective because everybody there was a bootstrap founder or someone a bootstrap founder, and they were building SaaS companies. So you had a lot of like-minded folks. And since then, I'm not in that group anymore. But I've since then, kind of like what you mentioned, we started to break apart a few folks that really were in my cohort that I can rely on. And so we since then created a WhatsApp group, and we're talking about our challenges, where we are. We probably don't talk as much as we probably should, and we don't rely on each other as much as we should, because we kind of like we're growing at different paces there. So it's kind of hard. And I think like I'm still searching for really that community there. And I think this was a lot easier back in the day in Silicon Valley, maybe like 5 years back, pre-pandemic, when you were still meeting folks in person, when you're still going to meetups, startup meetups, and you're meeting like-minded founders. But now, since the pandemic, a lot of that has been suppressed, or maybe not as exposed into the community space anymore. So like those opportunities has gone down quite a bit. Like in the past, we would be working at these incubators, and these incubators would have dozens and dozens of startups there. And every Friday there would be just a mixer. And so these different startups that were all working or co-working out of the space get to meet each other, see where they're at, and really like help each other out. And I feel like a lot of those communities has just gone away.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes me go, I want one of those communities. That sounds super fun.
It was a lot of fun, and and maybe it'll come back, or maybe I'm just not exposed to it as much as I should. But like, I'd be interested in hearing from you, like, how have you found folks finding their tribe? And like I found it in STRs, and maybe it was serendipity or by luck, but I haven't been able to do so in the same degree in my startup.
I suppose a lot of it is about intention, like intentionality. Like your short-term rental, you needed help, so I'm sure you went and looked for it. And right now, from what I understand about startups, is they're like a crazy marathon sprint because you do so much. So I would be very curious on what your intentionality has been to try to even find one or have the potential. Because if you don't have time because you have a family, you have two businesses, one of them is going to it takes a lot more, into it. And it's like, well, you just figure it out because that's what entrepreneurs do. So I would say I'm more curious if you've done anything to look for one. I know that's like a really easy question, but it's true.
Yeah, I don't think so. To be quite
Yeah,
honest, like outside.
because sorry, we got into the pandemic, and I feel like the way we used to do things completely different now.
Yeah.
And it is that way in a lot of different, like in a lot of circumstances. And you're even talking about how like that did happen before pre-pandemic, but now it's like we don't even think about certain parts of this, like certain parts of community building. Like I go through these like roller coasters of emotions throughout a whole entire week or something, we'll call it. And I'm realizing I'm not around human beings anymore because I work from home.
Yep.
My work isn't really like I can work whenever I want on whatever I want. I have so much freedom. So I'm not seeing normal human beings anymore. So when I go through these weird emotions, I'm just like, oh, it's because I'm not around humans. Because I feed off of humans. Like I'm extroverted. I want to do that. So I'm realizing now I have to literally change the way I've been doing things the last 4 years. And I have to go out to the people at this point. Like they're not coming to me unless I invite them, which is fine. But even this, like you love work. You're talking like, I already know that about you. Like just entrepreneurs do typically like work, and startups, that's like, I don't know, that's work on steroids because you have to you have to. The buck stops with you in a way. Like, yes, my short-term rentals are that way, but a startup is like, this is different. Like you have clients in a way that my clients check out on Sundays, and you have a portion of clients that check out on Sundays, but most of your clients at this point in your life don't check out. Like you have to, you continue to have all these clients. So, your time is just squeezed for going out and finding people, because if you hadn't tried to go out and find people, then, things can be different, but if you haven't made any efforts, that's the thing. And usually when I'm talking to people about stuff like this, most of the time, like 90% of the time, is somebody found somebody through networking of some kind.
Yeah.
Like they had to, there was one piece of networking that brought them into that group, because I don't care about their name, but the human being that introduced you to that short-term rental group that you're in, like the 100-person Slack channel, how did you meet them?
They're actually one of my closest friends.
And like and where did you meet that person? Like, did you grow up with them? So you met him in
Yeah.
like grade school or?
Yeah. I met him in grade school. He's actually one of my closest friends. Yeah, I met him in grade school, and he joined the community, and then he found out I was getting into short-term rental, and he invited me into this community as well too.
Yeah, so I know that he's one of your longest friends, but technically, I guess when we're in school, even in grade school, we're networking. I mean, we're really just creating friends, so
Yeah,
whatever. But I found that most people that get introduced to something, it's because of someone. Someone changed the whole entire trajectory for them on the way they want to network, the way they want to find somebody else, because they'll get introduced. Like, there's the super introducers, like Rose. Like,
yeah,
she's a super connector because she thinks of people and it's like, oh, let me connect you. So in your way, like your guy was your connector for you. So
that's true.
you didn't even have to put in that much work. I mean, you were just like, you happen to have a freaking awesome friend that was like, hey, you should join me on this.
Yeah,
But you haven't found the person that's going to connect you to the community yet, or at least honestly, this is kind of crazy and I'm seriously just babbling at this point, but that's what I think of is like somebody connects you to somebody
yeah,
that is connected to a group, or you listen to a podcast and maybe like the way I work, it's so funny. I don't really like work that much. I like people. So
yeah.
if people can connect me to anything, that's where I go. So I think about some of the groups that I've joined. It's all because of other people. It's somebody that I listened to on something and I was like, oh my God, I really want to join that. And then from there, I've found the person that I want to join, and then I spread, when I'm in that group, and I'm just like, oh my God, who else can I hang out with? So it might not be you that does that, but somebody has taken you onto their boat and is like, hey, you should come hang out with us. This is really cool.
Yeah. I think that's probably the difference between like we talk about communities like a few times now, and that's probably one of the differences between those public communities that you find on those Facebook forums and these private ones that are grown a lot more organically because someone's deciding to pull you into their world and their
Yep.
network. Like Rose, like you mentioned, Rose has connected me to a bunch of different folks in there, and I
Sure
met some
has.
awesome people there. But I don't have that same like I have a great affinity to the hospitable host group because I've met
Yeah.
a lot of these folks in person. I get to see their values there, but I don't have that same affinity from some of these Facebook groups. Like
Yeah.
I'm on there and I ask questions every so often, or I'll respond back to folks. But it's that sense of community is a very different intimacy.
Yes. And yeah, this is so interesting to even think about now because I am one of those people. I'm the person that's like, or like, that's what I enjoy. That's why I have a podcast just about tribe building, is because I want to be like, you tell me this problem that you're just like, man, I don't necessarily have the community that I'm looking for my startup. And I've already written down 7 people on my piece of paper to discuss with you afterwards to be like, hey, I want to connect you to these 3 people. Like, what do you think? And then maybe these people could work too. But you just have to get in touch with that one super connector that's going to be like, oh, you should join this. Or, like it's all about that experience. And it's interesting you started talking about Dan Martell because I have 4 friends in Dan Martell's group right now. I've noticed certain things happening on Facebook, on social media, and I'm just like, what are they doing now? And all of them keep saying, well, I joined Dan Martell's group. And it's so interesting to watch that. So it's, you join a group and then you see like all the intricacies or like the different connections that are going to start happening. And you just haven't found your connection group yet.
I think that probably goes back to a point of like you seeking and you being a connector as well too. Like there's probably some correlation to just the amount of people that you meet, the amount of people that you want to connect to others. And those that kind of reciprocate that back to you as well too. I wonder if there is that two-way street there.
Yeah, there's a synchronicity for sure. Like, I love to connect people with anybody I can. I read a book once and I could not tell you the name of it. Oh, it's called The Tipping Point. I can't believe I remember that. There's a book called The Tipping Point and it talks about like the 3 different humans that do stuff like this. And it even has research in it, but it talks about when the guy George, is his name George Revere? Whoever warned everybody that the British were coming, like a long, long time ago, it talked about how him doing that actually wasn't the thing that made all these people know. It was him saying it to the right people, and those people affecting the whole entire like map essentially saying like, these people need to tell, like all these different people started doing that. It's just, it was his name that did it. So they actually can tell you the tipping point in all kinds of situations of like, there's one person, it's not a town crier, but I guess you could even say like there's a town crier that then connects all these people to all these things, and great big things happen because of it. And it's all like these tiny little chance meetings that happen, and it's, you know, there's certain people that make those connections happen. Like there was a guy, I think in Hollywood, that was responsible for essentially everybody ever getting to be in Hollywood in the 40s or some random thing, just because they met this one person. Like they could actually all tie back to this one human that went to a lot of parties and connected to people. And I think that's really cool, because this is essentially how people build their network. You know, they're just like, it's one person that you kind of get attached to, and you're just like, whoa, look at all the people I know now. It's that introvert doesn't like to meet people, but they attach themselves to one extrovert, and they'll meet all the people they would ever need.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that one.
Yeah, and okay, so I digress here a little bit because I'm just excited when somebody starts talking about this. But can we talk about, you have another community, and I think this is interesting because now I know about your short-term rental community, how that came about, your startup community, and where it's just kind of sitting. But then you have another community that you kind of touched on before we even hopped on the call. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I think the other community that I'm part of is actually the community, the community of parents within my kids' school. So I'm a dad of two kids in elementary school, and I don't know if this is different for different elementary schools, especially in San Francisco when it's such a big metro area. But a lot of parents I meet from different schools do not have such a strong community as my kids' school does. My kids' school, the parents are super involved. They're constantly volunteering. And we get to, like, in the morning, I say hi to a bunch of people, even within the first year of meeting them. And it's just amazing there, where I feel like there's something special within that school and the network that has been growing over that time, that culture there that has made like a strong bond between the different parents. And last year, we went through a tough time where we actually did not have a principal for more than half the year.
Oh,
and our assistant principal left the second half of the year. So there was no leadership in the school, but yet we were actually able to have a phenomenal year. We had all the different events, everybody like banded together, both teachers and parents all banded together. And we're like, okay, maybe the principal will come back. We don't know, but we're going to work on this together. And it was just amazing. I ended up meeting a lot of these folks because one of my hobbies is being a videographer. I love creating video. And I now became known as the school videographer. So all the school events, all the field trips that at least my kids go to, I create these like 3 to 4 minute videos, and it's the sweetest things. And now like these videos get played at every single orientation, school orientations there. But it's just like, it's amazing to meet some of these parents and just really feeling like there's a sense of community there. It's amazing. Like that's probably one of my other strongest communities I've been a part of.
yeah, and I love this because this ties back to the other thing that I was talking about is you spend time there. You have to spend time there. And I'm really happy to actually hear that that's the kind of parent you are, because I think putting your kids on the back burner for a startup, for business, for all of that stuff to show them, everybody has this thing where they want to leave this legacy and they want to show them how you need to work hard. And I think that happens, but it kind of is a bummer because a lot of people will show them by not showing up to so many things. So you show up to your kid's school, and that's the reason that you have a good community there. And granted, there's either 1 or 2 or 3 parents in there that they're the reason that there's a pull. So they probably started it and then it grew, and now it gets maintained by all of you because you all know how great it is, which is so cool. But it's fun, but you spend time there. Like you have to spend time there because you're with your kids, and that's why it's probably extra fun for you too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like, and we've done a lot of different community building projects where like we'll have garden day, and there's been times where I will take a Saturday out of my weekend and we'll build planter beds like from scratch for the community. And my son's doing it next to me. And it's amazing because like he'll go back to class and it's like teacher, we built that. Like I built that with my hands. And like there's like a huge sense of pride there.
Yeah. I think that's so fun. Like, I love that. I love, like, now it's like making me think of the people that I could talk to on our podcast about stuff like this because it's so cool the kind of community that can happen when you do stuff like that. Like, that's the reason it stays alive is because somebody's involved and wants to be like, yeah, let's spearhead this. And they pick a date and people show up.
Yeah. I think like, it all comes back to like values there. Like if you have strong values with people that have the same goals in mind and they think about things very similarly. And the values that I have between my school community is very different than from the SDR ones. But we all share the same values within those communities there. And I think that that's why the bond is just so strong.
Yeah, it really does make a difference, when you're around people that care about the same things and care to, continue to keep that message or whatever that thing is and they want to push it forward together. Yeah. So that's super cool. Okay, I want to ask you something. I've just started asking people this,
Sure.
So we're going to see how it goes. Can you tell me how you pay your bills? So the reason I'm asking you this question is because I think people think I have a lot of money and I think it's hilarious because I definitely don't. So I think about people like you're in a startup phase. You also have short-term rentals. Like, how do you guys pay your bills in your household? Does your wife have a full-time job? Like, are you the W-2 or your partner? Or like, what does that look like? How do you pay your bills? Like, how do you pay to live in San Francisco?
Like honestly, right now, all of it's on automatic payment. So like we don't really think about it. But like my wife and I.
No, where does the money come from? Is what I mean.
So my wife and I have been together for 20 something years now. So we've been together for a very long time. Yeah, we've been together for a very long time. And we've, even before we got married, we ended up having a joint account. So every month we put into the joint account and we draw from that joint account. And that has worked out really well. Yeah.
That's awesome. But like, what does she like? Do you take money out of your short-term rentals? You aren't taking money out of CraftedStays yet. That seems pretty obvious. Like, you guys are a startup, you can't do that. But you still have to pay, like, I don't know. An average person doesn't have to pay a San Francisco thing. So I'm just going to say, if you have a $2,500 mortgage, I know that's not what your mortgage is. But like, who pays? Like, how does that get paid in your entrepreneurial journey?
I think it's a little bit different now. Now that we're focusing on the company, like I'm focused on building the company, a lot of like our growth goes back into fueling this company. But prior to like both when we were both working our W-2 jobs and having steady income, we actually added both of our incomes together and figure out like what are our proportions. And then we use that to figure out how much do we put into the joint account together. So it's a proportion of how much we make out there. So if I make a little bit more one year, then I'll be putting more into our joint account, and that's just to be equitable to both of us.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. So have you ever been able to take money out of your short-term rentals, or does that all go back into the company as well? Somebody like your short-term rental company, not necessarily into Crafted.
Not too much. We've really been like trying to really build up those reserves and really use that to basically fuel the next few acquisitions. So like our short-term rentals really right now we're thinking of it really as the long-term game. We're not using it necessarily
they pay for themselves and that's about it. Like,
well, they cash flow.
It builds up.
It builds up, but it builds up on its own where we can actually then acquire another property using the cash flows there. Not necessarily to fuel lavish lifestyles for us. At least that's not right now. Like for us, we want to hold on to these assets over time. We want to see our portfolio grow. So we treat it as a long-term investment.
Awesome. Yeah. So you guys are still like, so you being in the startup and not having a W-2 anymore, does your wife have a W-2?
Yeah.
Or she in one of the businesses? Okay. So that helps. Like, honestly, I talk to people and sometimes it's so surprising because I'm just like, how do you guys pay your bills? Like as an entrepreneur, like technically I don't work. I mean, I do work. I work plenty, but our bills get paid mostly from my husband's W-2, and then mine is travel money or, and investment money and stuff like that. So that's why I'm going to start asking this question is because I think, some people just think people have a lot of money, and I'm like, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
No.
And some people, like they're just like, no, my spouse is supporting me through this business because we know that in the long term it's going to work and it's going to take a few years.
Yeah, and we've changed our lifestyle quite a bit since I went down this entrepreneur journey there, where we're thinking about how do we travel more economically as we're fueling this company there. So like the company's getting closer as every month goes on to being self-sustaining there. So we're having to invest less and less into it. And every so often we do have to inject it with cash and whatnot, but like it's coming from some reserves that we've been able to save up over the years going down this path. Like I actually wanted to start 2 or 3 other startups in the last decade, but my wife told me that it's not the right time. And I was hard-headed in the past and I disagreed with her, but she's right. Like it wasn't the right time to start something. But we are now at a different time in our lives where we are not heavy spenders. Like we're not big spenders. We don't travel lavishly. We try to really watch our money there, really to make sure that we're growing something that we feel very comfortable with. We want to build that nest egg. And I think that allowed us to take bigger risk now. And had we changed and had we spent a lot more, I wouldn't have been able to start this company.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for entertaining my question of how do you pay your bills? Okay, and then the last thing that I want to ask you is, what's the best advice someone has given you that you've actually used?
Oh, I think the more general one is kind of just get started and not have to feel like you have all the answers there. That one is one that's stuck by me, specifically as an entrepreneur there, because I don't have all the answers. I don't know what I'm going to come up to in the next year. But I'm like, if you try to figure out what the right plan is and you try to map it all out and you have everything on course and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this and I'll have to meet this goal by this time. Like when you're going into the unknown, that is a really hard feat to do. And if you really embrace it and you really have that growth mindset of mustering through that and really using that as an opportunity to learn, you don't really have to have all the answers before you get started.
It's awesome. I love that. And last thing, is there anything you're looking for right now? Like anybody you need to either be connected to, or, you're looking for, obviously you're looking for more users for CraftedStays, but
I think for me, kind of going back to specifically finding your tribe, I do want to find folks that are in that same entrepreneur journey and really have gone through it. And I met a lot of founders in our space, but they're at different stages of the company now, and the challenges that they're dealing with is not the same things that I'm thinking about. So I am still looking for that tribe. I'm still looking for folks to really help me grow the company and figure out okay, how can I learn from folks that have done something like this? And it doesn't have to necessarily be a tech company. I've learned a lot of folks just in sales and marketing and really growing communities and all those different things that we have to do as entrepreneurs. There's a lot of skill sets that you have to do. And I met a lot of great folks in that, and they've given me some phenomenal advice, but I'm still kind of really looking for my tribe.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, I've got people I'm going to connect you with regardless. So this is great. I appreciate the hour that you spent with me. This is so fun. I know I could ask you probably questions for days because I love entrepreneurs and short-term rentals and stuff. But mainly, thank you so much for hanging out with me for an hour, man.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Tribe builders, thanks for listening this week. If you liked this, if you got anything out of it, like it, give us 5 stars, do all the good things. If you need to be connected to Gil, there's show notes. Otherwise, reach out to me. I'd be happy to give you an intro, and see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Bye.